In recent years, global political tensions have intensified, driven by issues such as NATO's eastward expansion, concerns over national sovereignty, and the rise of digital surveillance. Central to these discussions are key figures like Andrew Bridgen, who have voiced concerns about the erosion of democracy and the potential consequences of international policies. One of the most significant points Bridgen addresses is NATO and the European Union's consistent movement eastward since the collapse of the Soviet Union. This expansion has been a major source of tension, particularly with Russia. In 1991, Western nations made promises to Russia that NATO would not move closer to its borders in exchange for allowing the reunification of Germany. However, these promises were soon broken, as NATO and the European Union began admitting Eastern European countries into their folds. This eastward push, which now brings NATO closer to Russian territory, has been viewed by Russia as a direct threat. Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, has made it clear for over a decade that Ukraine's potential NATO membership and the possibility of nuclear missiles being placed on Russia's borders is unacceptable. This sentiment echoes the historical precedent of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, where the US refused to allow Soviet nuclear weapons just 90 miles from its borders. The broken promises from the West, combined with Russia's strategic concerns, have led to increased tensions. Bridgen highlights that the Minsk agreements, which were meant to halt NATO's eastern expansion, were not upheld. Instead, NATO has continued to encroach on Russia's borders, further destabilizing the region. He notes that despite these provocations, Russia has shown significant restraint, particularly in its military engagements with Ukraine. The West, on the other hand, has been actively supplying Ukraine with advanced weaponry, such as the UK's Storm Shadow missiles, while also providing technical support. Bridgen warns that these actions are edging the world closer to a broader conflict, potentially even a third world war. In parallel with these international tensions, Bridgen also raises concerns about domestic issues, particularly in the UK. He speaks about the growing unease over the erosion of national sovereignty, especially with regards to the World Health Organization, WHO, and its increasing influence over national health policies. According to Bridgen, the WHO, which is largely funded by private interests like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the Chinese Communist Party, is poised to wield unprecedented power through its proposed pandemic treaty and amendments to international health regulations. He argues that this treaty, once signed, would give the WHO the authority to impose health measures on countries without the need for parliamentary votes or public debate. This, he claims, represents a massive giveaway of national sovereignty, one that would place unelected and unaccountable global organizations above the will of the people. Furthermore, Bridgen discusses the UK's potential involvement in the European Union's Defence and Security Union, a pact that would give the EU control over the British Army, Navy, Air Force, MI5 and MI6. This, he argues, is a direct contradiction to the promises made during the Brexit referendum, where the public was assured that leaving the EU would restore the UK's sovereignty. Bridgen warns that this move would strip the UK of its ability to defend itself and would place its security apparatus under the control of a foreign entity. In addition to concerns over national sovereignty, Bridgen also highlights the dangers of digital surveillance and the rise of digital IDs. Former Prime Minister Tony Blair has long advocated for the implementation of digital IDs in the UK, arguing that they would solve various issues, from immigration to welfare fraud. However, Bridgen sees this as part of a broader trend toward increased government control and surveillance. He argues that once implemented, digital IDs, coupled with digital currencies, would create a digital trap from which it would be nearly impossible to escape. In this scenario, Citizens' every move could be tracked, and their access to services could be controlled based on their behaviour or political beliefs. Bridgen's concerns reflect a growing sense of disillusionment with the political establishment, both in the UK and globally. He believes that governments are no longer acting in the best interests of their citizens, but are instead serving the interests of powerful corporations and global organisations. This, he argues, is evidenced by the actions of both the Conservative and Labour parties, which he claims are merely two sides of the same coin, offering voters the illusion of choice. According to Bridgen, true democracy has been undermined by a system that rewards politicians for serving their party rather than their constituents. In conclusion, Andrew Bridgen's insights paint a picture of a world at a crossroads. On one hand, international tensions are escalating due to NATO's eastward expansion and the West's involvement in Ukraine. On the other hand, domestic issues such as the erosion of sovereignty, the rise of digital surveillance, and the concentration of power in the hands of global organisations are threatening the very fabric of democracy. Bridgen's warnings serve as a call to action, urging citizens to remain vigilant and to stand up for their rights before it is too late. Without concerted effort, he argues, we may find ourselves trapped in a world where freedom and sovereignty are things of the past.